Sorry. Astros fans, they did it. They took care of business. 2022, your Houston Astros are World Series champs. This is the second time in 6 years. Can you believe it? Can you see this happening? I mean, with Yuli Gurriel being out of this game, then you had Christian Vasquez kind of be the semi-hero of this game. But Yordan Alvarez was the big guy with the big bat today. And we'll talk about this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. This is just kind of a baby show. We're going to do a full one once Brett gets back. He's at the World Series right now. He's probably watching the award ceremony, but this was just an awesome series. And I know it kind of started off bad with the Astros losing game one, then they lost game three. And a lot of people thought that, well, this is going the Phillies' way, but not this Astros. These Astros are very determined. They have the pitching staff to really control the series, and that's what they did. So if you look at what the Astros did, they not only took home field advantage away from the Phillies, they won 2 out of 3 games from Philadelphia, but they came home and really took care of business against a Zach Wheeler who did have his velocity back up. So overall, this was a great game overall. Yes, Maldonado did get hit by a pitch. Some people say he kind of leaned into that. He didn't back away from it, but this is just great for Dusty Baker. This is his first World Series. He's no longer the manager with the most wins to not win a World Series title. He's done it. This was his 25th season. He's age 73. Now the question is, now that the season's technically over, will Dusty Baker be back next year? James Click will be back. Will he be back next year? But that's not what this show is about. This show is about your team winning. Alvarez, he crushed that ball. That was right down the middle, and it was just crazy to see how far that ball went, 450 feet, and some guy on top of the batter's eye was able to catch that ball. And so if you're looking at who deserves the MVP, I think they're about to give that award away in a second. But who do you think deserves to be the MVP? In my eyes, it's probably going to be Jeremy Pena. And yes, he did just get the MVP right now. So Jeremy Pena won the MVP of the World Series. So that's the ALCS. And then he got the World Series MVP. So this kid, as young as he is, what is he, 25 years old, he has done so much for the Astros in the postseason. And this is his first year. Imagine what happens once he gains some more confidence in himself. And I mean, he's a cocky guy. He's a confident guy anyway. But just imagine when his second year, once he learns how to hit the ball better. I think that this was great. So, mostly Altuve was kind of missing for most of the postseason, but he did hit a little bit in the World Series. Alvarez was like 2 for something since that he hit the 2 home runs in the ALDS, but he rectified everything with a great catch earlier in the game, robbing somebody of extra bases, and also that 3-run homer to put the Astros ahead. Yes, they did get the extra run, but they can't say that this is our World Series championship. You can't say anything about this. 2017 is a legit championship. 2022 is a legit championship. Now we have 2 championships under the belt, and this Astros team is good enough to continue to win. I think they have the talent. It just depends on what they do in offseason. And this is just great to see overall. So what are your instant reactions? What do you think about this game? This podcast is mostly about you, the listeners, and I'll kind of talk about some stuff, but Brett and I will do a full podcast once we get back. But the Astros beat the Phillies. This was great, and it was just a great series overall. So here's one that said, Who's your daddy, Phillies? Okay, yes, definitely. That's the name of the thread I put. That so Jeremy Pena, Eric Miller says that Jeremy Pena deserved to win this award. Yes, what he did, he batted. What was his final? I think he was close to 400. I should have had the mains pull up. I was trying to get the show going as soon as possible. But I think he finished the postseason batting close to 400, if not over 400. So he deserved this MVP, and not just he batted 345 on the postseason with a 1005 OPS. But if you look at what he's done, he is the first rookie in history to have a hit in all six World Series games. So that's just impressive. That when a lot of players were struggling, you saw him you succeed. So that's great there. So definitely along with Pena and Alvarez, you got he was igniting our offense day. Yeah, don't forget that Pena did get on base ahead of that hit, and then so yes, what's going on? So Steve says that we are so happy for Dusty. Yeah. The players wanted to do this for Dusty Baker, and they wanted to get this win. So what does this W do for Verlander's legacy? I think you mean his actual win in the World Series, because he already has a World Series win, but now this will be a second. But I think that this is a big deal for Verlander getting that win. Just to say that he wasn't a choker in the World Series, he was able to get the job done. And even game five, it wasn't that beautiful, but he did limit the Phillies offense. If you look at what the Phillies offense did, they didn't really score that much. They scored some runs here and there. They had some great home runs. Like you had Schwarber with that home run today, and it was crushed. It was the first home run that Framber Valdez has allowed to a left-hander second he's allowed to a left-hander all season. So that was impressive that Schwarber was able to do that. But it looked like as the game went on, the Phillies kind of fell. They just kind of looked defeated, and you saw Schwarber try to bunt with 2 strikes, and it's just like, what's going on there? So, yes, I think that another big point of today's game. Yes, it didn't really factor in the decision, but it does factor in Mancini's psyche. Mancini got a hit today. So that was really big. You could see the big smile on his face. You could see the teammates supporting him. That was a big thing for Trey Mancini there. So I'm just glad to see that. There's some rumors coming out. I guess we'll find out soon, a little bit after the game or maybe tomorrow. There's some rumors that Martin Maldonado was playing with a broken hand during the World Series. So if that's the case, then I did see him a couple times, like when he was trying to take off one of his gloves. He was using his mouth to do it. So if that is the case, then he's a gamer. We saw Lance McCullers pitch with injury before. So that's what these guys are. They're gamers. And so you see Big Papi giving Dusty Baker a big hug right now. But this is a big moment, not just for Houston Astros franchise, but Dusty Baker is already a Hall of Fame manager. But now this just gives him the icing on the cake. And I'm really proud of that. So Jason says, Eric, we did it. Yes, we are World Series champs. You can't say crap about this World Series because the Astros did it the right way. And I think that the Astros are a great team. And how did they win the series? With pitching. How many strikeouts did they get in the last inning? No strikeouts. So the Phillies struck out a MLB record 71 times in the World Series. Think about that. 71 times the Phillies struck out. That's how good this Astros pitching was. So they set a new World Series record. That's something you don't want to be part of. So it's great to see this. Valdez got his 3rd win of the season. And this was a whole different Framber Valdez from last postseason where he struggled and everything. But Valdez is the Astros ace. And yes, he did allow 2 walks today. He wasn't as crisp as he was in game 2, but the Phillies really had no answer for him. So the pitching staff did great. We didn't even see Hunter Brown a lot in the World Series, but that's fine. We didn't. We saw Urquidy in that blowout game once the Astros had the Phillies had a big lead. But this team, a lot of national talking heads were like, after Game 3, they said, "Oh, this series is over. The Phillies are going to win it at home," and the Astros took care of business. They took 2 games away from Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm just glad to see that this team is just so good. So let me get back to chat. So shout out to this pitching staff. What else? So the Phillies offense was only at its best when McCullers was tipping his pitches. Yeah, I heard that. I saw that somebody said that. Well, um, y'all say that we only hit by scoring by hitting trash cans, but y'all can only hit by when our pitchers are tipping their pitches. But yeah, McCullers had a bad game. I don't expect McCullers to have a game like that ever, but that was the kind of weird thing of this playoff, this World Series, because if Verlander pitched a slightly better game, maybe didn't drop that first ball, and maybe was able to get double play in that instance, you could have seen a much bit different outcome in Game 1. And then if McCullers wasn't so predictable or tipping his pitches in Game 3, then maybe you could have wrapped this up earlier, because the Phillies, outside of a couple innings, the Astros pitching staff really held him down. And Bryce Harper, as good as postseason as he had, he didn't really do much in the World Series outside of the first game, or and maybe a couple in the third game. So the Astros, they won with great defense. They won with a great bullpen. They won with hitting, just enough hitting, and I believe they scored in 9 innings in the entire World Series or something like that, and 6 of those were crooked numbers. So the Astros got enough offense to get it done, and you just can't say enough about Jeremy Pena, what he means to his team. He's a Gold Glover, and we saw that he made some great plays on defense today. We saw Alvarez make that great catch in the left field today. So that was one of those it felt like it was in slow motion. I don't know if that was like for y'all too, but I think it was Castellanos, but that felt like it felt like it was in slow motion, and Alvarez was just kind of jogging out there, and he got there. But man, I'm just so pumped about this. The Astros limited this Phillies offense to 3 hits today. 3 hits. And the Astros had 7 hits. One of those was Alvarez, who hasn't had a home run since Game 2 of the ALDS. And all 3 of his home runs have been with the team trailing after 6 innings. And that's the most in MLB history. So Alvarez may not always hit home runs in the playoffs, but when he does, it's a big, big deal. So, guys, they're still on the field. They're still celebrating. They're about to go into the dugout, the clubhouse, and do their celebration. So what was your favorite part of the World Series? Let's go ahead and y'all put that up in your chat. What was your favorite part of the World Series? I would have to say mine was watching that Christian Javier no-hitter, combined no-hitter, the dominance, the fact that they scored 7 runs against him and just was so dominant against them. And so I think that start really set the tone for the rest of the series. And so, Seabrook kind of brings us up. He said, Philly learned, be careful what you ask for. Every team that said, we want Houston, well, you got us. What are you going to do with us now? And that's when you want something, you got to be careful, because the Astros are a good team. Yes, the Phillies were on a hot streak. They're unbeaten at home, but the Astros took care of business. And once the Phillies realized that they can lose at home, the whole series was over. And so, no, Joshua, I'm not going to use that. But let's see. They check every inning. We are the champions, my friends. Yes, we are the champion. We just opened Popeye Spinach. Okay. I think it's Jalen. Jalen says my favorite was Jordan home run today in the 6th inning. in Game 6 today. Yeah, that was impressive, and that was in 6 inning. I was correct. So yeah, and that was a blast. And I think they said that's the second longest home run in playoff history. So last year, Freddie Freeman hit one against the Astros that went a little bit further. But this one was, I think that Freddie Freeman was 460 feet. This one was 450 feet, and it was dead center. And it was just so impressive that it cleared the whole freaking batting eye. I just haven't seen that before. And so now your Astros are World Series champs. This is just great to see. And so what else? MP says his favorite part was JV coming back and redeeming himself. What a resilient person to come back and pitch 5 innings. Yeah, and he didn't really have his best stuff that game, but he pitched good enough to get the job done. He limited them to that Kyle Schwarber leadoff home run. After that, they didn't do much. So Kyle Schwarber tried to be the guy that took the Phillies to win the World Series, but in this it wasn't enough. The Astros pitching was just too good. I like the way that they limited Bryce Harper. They kind of shut him down. And Joshua asked a good question. What's that? All right. So the job is finished. Yes. And okay. So Seabrook says Astros are a true dynasty, not close to being done yet. Okay. So yeah, they can be a dynasty, but they still have the big pieces in place. But what happens with Justin Verlander? What happens with Yuli Gurriel? I know he didn't have the great regular season, but he was dynamite during the playoffs. So you need that guy possibly back. I know that we'll talk about this in the second podcast, but he was taken off the roster and Corey Lee was added to the roster to give Christian Vasquez the ability to be the DH. And that paid off today as he scored, as he drove in a run in that situation. So it was good to see Vasquez make his impact felt with the RBI. He had a single as well. And so Mancini had that single. So you had a little bit more contribution up and down the lineup. Kyle Tucker did get a walk. I think that was like a 10 pitch or 12, 9 pitch at bat or something like that. But Kyle Tucker was 0 for 3, but he did make his impact going. So this is just great to see what's happening. You see Justin Verlander and Kate Upton being interviewed right now on the field. And so I doubt we're going to see any proposals like we saw with Carlos Correa proposing to Danielle when back then. But definitely this was a great series. This was a very entertaining series. And I don't think this was as stressful as I thought it was. Yeah, the Astros, they didn't score until I think this is the longest game in World Series history where it was scoreless. And it went till the 5th inning or 6th inning until they scored. So that's the longest game in World Series history that both teams have been held scoreless. But I wasn't worried. I thought that the Astros had it. And the fact that even when Framber Valdez gave up that one run, I'm like, I think the Astros got this. They've shown it that they can take care of business. And once you get to that bullpen, the bullpen just is dynamite. And I know a lot of people are saying, where's Stanek? Well, yes, Stanek has not been used, but look at the results today. Neris came in and dominated. He had 2 strikeouts and retired his former team. And that dude was pumped up. I was so excited about that. Then Abreu came in. He continued to dominate. And then you had Ryan Presley came in. Yes, he gave up that hit. And everybody's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Is this where we're going to ruin it? But Ryan Presley did a great job. In fact, he's done a great job all series. And he's just been, as Duncan said, he's just been pure nasty. So, yes, this was just great. They are world champs. And I just want to say thank y'all for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen. Brett and I will be back in a little bit once he gets home. We're going to go ahead and do a full episode. I want to get his opinion, but I just wanted to jump on with y'all and just do an immediate reaction. The Stros are World Series champions. How does that sound? This is not like the Dodgers 2020 Disney World Series. This is a legit World Series, and they went through some legit teams to get here. Okay, so the Mariners are a up-and-coming team. The Yankees are the Yankees. They swept both those guys. The Phillies put up more of a fight, but the Phillies were probably a better team than the Yankees or the Mariners. So that's all we got for this special edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. We'll be back in a little bit with Brett, and we'll be talking more about this exciting World Series win. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros. Your team every day. Go Stros.